What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Kevin Sucks at Poker vlog number 2. You may have noticed some pretty big changes since vlog number 1. The first one being that I'm wearing a gray Angels hat instead of a black and blue one. Second change being that I'm in front of a wall instead of in front of a curtain. And number 3, I'm not wearing my glasses. That's not because I've got LASIK and can now actually see. It's because my lovely wife got me a ring light to help me with lighting for recording the videos. It's pretty awesome, but I've decided that I won't go with the glasses for reflection purposes, and I think it'll be okay. Which brings me to Kevin's unsolicited life advice number 1, which is you should choose to spend your time with people who are supportive of you and not people who suck. In this vlog, we're back at Bellagio playing more 2-5 no limit hold'em. A lot of my vlogs will probably be at Bellagio. I like the Bellagio, and it likes me. I do end up getting a ton of premium hands in this video. Not a ton of them go to Showdown. A lot of them are kind of short hands, so I try to put a bunch of hands in the video so that you could see all the premiums I had, kind of how my session went. The way that I plan to do the vlogging is that I decide before I go whether I'm going to record that session or not. And if I record a session, I plan to make a vlog about it. If it comes out good and I win, awesome. If it comes out bad and I lose, well, that sucks, but I plan to keep it real with you guys. I'm not trying to just show winning sessions. Sometimes sessions may not be that exciting, but I'm going to try to pick the most interesting hands and spots to share with you guys. And I also plan to share with you how I do on the days that I'm not recording. You know, I don't want it to look like I've won 5 sessions in a row because I've won 5 recordings in a row or vlogs in a row, whereas I have losing sessions in between. So I plan to share that with you guys too. I want this to be pretty realistic as to how I'm doing playing poker. Before we get into the hands, I did ask a couple of my best friends to watch my first vlog and give me their thoughts on it. And I'm interested to see what they have to say. So let's check in with Buddha and see what he thought of the first vlog. Looks like we caught Buddha resting his eyes there. He did have a pretty exhausting day. He went from sleeping in my bed and he had to go all the way down the stairs, and then he had to climb up onto the sofa and go back to sleep there. So I did ask another one of my friends, my number 1, my best buddy, my ride or die, Stella, to also check out the video and for her to give me her thoughts. And I'm pretty excited for this one. Knowing her, she's probably already liked and subscribed. She's probably typing out some sort of comment right now about how great the vlog was and how much she's looking forward to the next one. So I'm looking forward to this. Let's check out what Stella thinks of the vlog. I'm back at the Bellagio 2-5. I get called for a new game, and I take a seat in C3, and I buy in for the max 500. The first hand I'm in, that's interesting. I'm in the cutoff with pocket queens. The under the gun +1 raises to 20. It folds to me. I 3-bet to 55, and only the +1 player calls. The flop is the 4 of spades, 7 of hearts, 8 of spades. He checks to me. I bet 85, and he folds, and I win. In the next one, I have Jack-9 of clubs and the low jack. Jack-9 is my favorite shitty hand of poker, and this one's suited. You can't fold suited cards. The +1 raises to 15. I call, and the hijack calls. The flop is Jack of diamonds, 9 of diamonds, 6 of spades. The +1 player bets 20. I think about raising here because there are straight draws and there's a flush draw. But I do have a player behind me, and I'm hoping to trap a little bit. So I just call, and the hijack also calls 20. The turn is the 6 of diamonds, which of course pairs the board and also brings in diamonds. But it's checked to me. I decide to bet 45 anyway, and the hijack folds and the +1 player calls. The turn is the 10 of spades, which is a pretty bad card because now Queen King gets there, 8 Queen gets there, 7 8 gets there. So pretty much any draw gets there. The diamond draw already got there, and now any straight draw also gets there. So he checks to me, and I probably should just check back here because, as I said, pretty much everything got there, and probably nothing can call me that I'm beating at this point, unless someone wants to call me with Ace Jack or King Jack. But I bet 75 anyway. Probably shouldn't have, but did. And he folds, and I win. In this one, I'm in the cutoff with 7 8 of clubs. It gets folded around to me. I raise to 20. Only the big blind calls. The flop is 8 of diamonds, 9 of hearts, 9 of spades, so I flop second 2 pair, I guess you could call it. He checks to me, I bet 25, and he calls. The turn is the 7 of spades, giving me 3 pair. He checks to me. I bet 60, and he calls. And the river's the 4 of clubs. He checks to me. I have no reason to bet this unless I'm turning my hand into a bluff when it seems like very likely my hand's actually probably the best hand. So I check back, and he shows ace 10 offsuit, so he turned open-ender, and on the flop he just didn't want to fold ace 10 to my bet, and I win this one. Next, I'm in the +1 with pocket fours. If I learned anything from my first video, it's that if you limp call with pocket fours, you will flop a set, and they may or may not hold up, but flopping a set's a good place to start. So I limp. It folds around to the big blind, who raises to 30, and I call just to set mine here. Probably not necessarily getting the right kind of odds to do that, heads up, but what the hell. The flop is the 9 of hearts, 7 of hearts, and jack of spades. So I sort of feel a little ripped off because I did not flop a set of fours, and that seems unfair. He checks and I check. The turn is the, oh, there it is, the 4 of spades. So I turn the bottom set. He bets 15. I raise to 50. There's 2 spades on the board. There's lots of straight draws on the board. I don't want to just call. He folds and says that I outflopped his ace high. This time I'm in the under the gun and I have ace king offsuit. I raise to 20. The hijack calls and the button 3 bets to 75. When I look at his stack, he has about 275, so rather than peel a flop, I decide to shove, and if he wants to put in 275, and we'll see what happens, that's fine with me. As soon as I say that I'm all in, the dealer tells me that this player on the button who 3-bet me actually has 200 more coming behind, and that they're just waiting for the chip runner to bring them. So there's not really a whole lot I can say to that, so I just say, okay. It's not like I can say, oh, wait, I want to take my bet back, or wait, now I just want to call and see a flop before I shove. Obviously, that's not really an option here. The hijack folds, it gets back to the button, and he thinks for a while and folds face up and shows pocket jacks. So the aggression here on the 4-bet shove works out. Who knows what would have happened if we would have seen a flop, didn't see one, but I'm happy to take the pot right here. Next, I'm in the big blind with pocket kings. The +1 player raises to 15. The small blind calls. I 3-bet to 65. The +1 player who raised folds, but the small blind calls. The flop is the 2 of hearts, 3 of diamonds, queen of hearts. I bet 75, and he folds. The very next round, I'm in the big blind again on this hand, and I look down at these 2 cards. I'm having trouble remembering what they're called. There seems to be some confusion in the community as to what these are called, but oh yeah, they're called jacks. They're just called jacks. So the low jack limps, the cutoff raises to 25. The button calls 25. I 3-bet to 85, and only the cutoff calls. The flop is 2 of clubs, 6 of hearts, 8 of hearts. I bet 120, and the cutoff folds, and I win. Here I'm in the +1 with ace-king offsuit again. I raise to 20, only the cutoff calls. The flop is 8 of spades, 10 of hearts, 3 of hearts. I bet 25 of the continuation bet. He calls. The turn is the 8 of diamonds. I consider continuing to bet here, but so far most people at this game have been folding when they miss flops. Sometimes they're folding on turns, but it's been pretty passive. There hasn't been a lot of call downs, as you can tell from the hands I've showed so far. So I decided to check the turn, and he bet 60, and I just decide to fold here. I don't have anything going on. I don't want to raise, and I don't want to call 60, just hoping to pair up on a river, so I just let this one go. Here I'm in the cutoff. I again have pocket fours. If there's anything I've learned from my first vlog and this vlog, it's that pocket fours will either flop or turn a set, so pretty much not folding them to any bet. The hijack raises to 25. I call 25. The under the gun player also calls 25. The flop is the 10 of spades, 6 of diamonds, and 4 of clubs. Yes, of course, the 4 of clubs, you can't not hit a set if you play pocket fours. You can take that to the bank. Anytime you have pocket fours, you must play them for any amount of money. A set is coming. You cannot take this to the bank. Pocket fours will not always flop or turn a set. Kevin is not responsible for any monies lost while you play pocket fours. Gets checked to me. I bet 40, and they both fold. I guess I could slow play the fours here, and there's random straight draws in there, like 3 5s, 5 7s, 7 8s, 8 9s, things like that. But when the hijack raises 25 and the undergun player calls, I think maybe someone has a 10. I don't think 40's a huge bet. It seems like someone could call that with any kind of draw. There's no flush draw, but any kind of straight draw, even overcards, a lot of people would just call to peel another one off since they raised pre-flop and checked to me. But I bet 40 and everybody folds. So what are you going to do other than always play pocket fours? Here I'm in the under the gun with pocket jacks again. I raise to 20. The low jack calls and the big blind calls. The flop is king of clubs, king of hearts, and 3 of hearts. And if there's going to be one overcard, there might as well be 2 of the same one. Odds of someone having a king are not super great. They check to me, I bet 30, and they both fold. In this one, I'm in the hijack with king jack of hearts. The under the gun player raises to 20. I call, and the button calls. The flop is the 7 of hearts, 4 of hearts, 2 of hearts, so I go ahead and flop the second nut flush right here. That's pretty good. He bet 60, and I just call, and the button folds. The turn is unfortunately a 3 of hearts, which not only kills my action, but potentially makes me lose to the ace of hearts. I'm not super worried about that yet, but he checks and I check behind. The river's the queen of diamonds. He checks. I bet 75 and he folds. And he says that he hates the turn, which of course means that he would have kept betting if it wasn't a heart and I would have made more money. Always happy to win a pot. I take this one even though it wasn't as big as I had hoped it would be when I flopped the second nuts. Literally the very next hand, I'm in the low jack with ace king offsuit yet again. I raise to 20 and only the button calls. The flop is 7-8 king rainbow. I'm first to act, and as you can see from a lot of the hands that I've shown tonight so far, when I've had hands, I've bet them. I do like to mix checks in, and this is one of those times where the board's pretty dry. There are straight draws, of course, because 7-8's there, but there's no flush draws. It's just a rainbow board, and I want to mix in checks once in a while. So I do, and he checks behind me. The turn is the 10 of diamonds, which is a pretty bad card. Now my favorite shitty poker hand, 9-jack, makes a straight. Now diamonds have a backdoor draw, which is fine. And now there's a lot of additional straight draws like jack, queen, things like that. I bet 25 and he calls. The river is also probably about the worst card in the deck. If you said to yourself, hey, name the worst card in the deck, it's the 9 of diamonds. So now there's a 4-liner on the board, and there's also 3 diamonds. It's about the worst run out you could ask for my exact hand. So sometimes you check back a dry board and try to have a little deception, and the board runs out like this. So I have a choice on the river. I'm first to act. I don't want to check and then have to hero call with an ace-king. So I decide to bet 60, and he does end up folding. So still win. Happy to win. In this next hand, I'm in the under the gun, and I decide I want to play some different cards. Just kidding, it's ace-king again. I raise to 20. The low jack calls and the high jack calls. The flop is 9 of clubs, jack of spades, queen of diamonds. That's not the best flop. It's also not the worst flop for my raising range, but I'm first to act with 2 people behind me, so I decide to check here. I probably would call a reasonable bet and peel one off, but it gets checked around. The turn is the 2 of clubs. This time I go ahead and bet 40, and they both fold. Here I'm in the cutoff. I'm starting to wonder when I'm going to finally catch some cards this session, and I look down to pocket kings. I raise to 20 in the cutoff, the button calls, and the big blind calls. The flop is 3 of diamonds, 5 of hearts, 9 of diamonds. It gets checked to me. I bet 50, and they both fold. In this next hand, I'm in the under the gun position. Still waiting for aces, guys. Haven't had aces once yet. I mean, how bad can you run? Anyways, I have pocket queens, so I raise to 20. The hijack calls and the small blind calls. The flop is 2 of spades, 4 of clubs, 5 of spades. So there's a lot of interconnectivity there, and spade draws. I bet 45, the hijack calls, and the small blind calls. The turn is the 4 of diamonds. That seems like an okay card. Less likely that someone has a set of 4s, obviously, or what would now be quads. But it also means that some random hand that contained a 4 now has 3 of a kind. But most likely, I feel like my queens are probably still good. It gets checks to me. I bet 100, and both players call. The river is the 5 of hearts, double pairing the board. That's an interesting card because I have 2 players that are calling my bets in this hand. There are straight draws, there are spade draws. It seems like someone could be calling with either a 4 or a 5. It gets checked to me. I decide that I just want to check here, and I maybe would call a bet depending on what happens. But it gets checked around, and the hijack shows pocket 9s. That makes sense. And the small blind shows ace 6 of spades. So he had a gut shot straight draw and the nut flush draw. Obviously, it's not the nuts because the board's paired, but the nut flush draw. So I dodge quite a few outs here, and I win a pretty decent pot with pocket queens on a double paired board. And this next one, I'm on the button. The low jack limps. It gets to me. I raise to 20. Everyone folds except the low jack. The flop is the 7 of spades, 7 of hearts, 4 of hearts. He checks to me, and I make a continuation bet of 25, and he calls. The turn is the 4 of spades, double pairing the board. He checks to me, and I don't really see him having many 7s or 4s. I'm a little concerned that he has ace high and will call, but I bet 60, and he does call. I feel like he probably has ace high or possibly a heart draw on the flop, although it's pretty hard to call a heart draw on the turn when the board's double paired. But he probably also feels like it's very unlikely for me to have a 7 or a 4 in my hand, being that I was the raiser. The river is the 9 of clubs, So it's a pretty big brick, it looks like to me. He checks to me again. Being that I put him on an ace-high hand or a heart draw, I decide to bet one last time for 75, thinking that maybe an ace-high will fold, and hearts obviously missed. He thinks for a while. He actually goes in the tank for a bit of time and actually asks me if I have queens again. Not this time, unfortunately, but he ends up thinking for a minute, and he does make the call, and he does show king 9 of hearts, so the initial read of heart draw was correct. Unfortunately, he just happened to river a 9, and that made him a pair above the 2 pairs on the board, so he wins this hand. I don't really feel like I probably played this one super great, but I did put him on a heart draw on the flop. I at least thought it was reasonably likely that he was on a heart draw, because this particular player didn't float a lot of flops with nothing. He didn't really float a lot with just overcards, so if he missed, he would just fold a lot, which is what led me to continuation bet on this one. And then that was my same reasoning on the turn, as this particular player was playing pretty straight up. If he had a hand, he would call or bet, and if he missed, he would check or fold. If he doesn't make some sort of hand, I think he folds to a $75 bet on the river, which was the reason I made it. It just turns out this time he hit the 9, and he wins this hand. In this hand, I'm in the under the gun +1. I guess I'll try ace king again. So I raise to 20. Only the small blind calls. The flop is 7 of clubs, 3 of diamonds, 9 of hearts. I continuation bet for 30, and he check raises me to 75. This player was playing pretty straight up. I hadn't seen him do any kind of bluffs the entire night or any check raises really, so I greatly consider folding here just to a check raise, but I don't really want him or the rest of the table to think that I'm just going to fold to a check raise, especially one for $45. So even though I think about it, and against this player, folding is probably correct, I decided to call for 45 more with ace king and see what comes on the turn. The turn is the 10 of clubs, and he leads for 200. I'm done with this hand. I fold pretty quickly, and he actually tells me that he flopped a set of 9s and that he realized he overplayed his hand. He should have played it slower. So I fold, and he wins. In this next one, I'm in the small blind with ace-5 of hearts. The entire table limps, except for the button, who folds. So I think about raising here with ace-5 of hearts, but with the whole table limping, I'll peel a flop, see if I can't hit some sort of straight or flush or some sort of hidden hand. I realize most players say you're probably supposed to raise here, punish the limpers, try to take down your $25 pot, or maybe someone will call your raise. If I raise to 40 here or 35 here, probably everyone will fold and I'll just win. Maybe 1 or 2 people call and I can be the aggressor and just win a pot like that. Sometimes that's true, but on this kind of a hand, sometimes I like to just peel a flop and see if I can't win a huge hand for minimal investment. So that's what I do on this one. The flop comes out jack of hearts, 3 of diamonds, queen of hearts. So I do flop the nut flush draw, some backdoor straight draws, but obviously trying to hit a flush here. The checks to the cutoff, who bets 25. I call and the big blind calls. I do think about raising here, but again, I'm not really trying to push people out of this pot because yeah, there's 7 people in for $35 pre-flop, and then now the cutoff bet's 25, so there's 60 in there. I'm not adverse to winning a $60 pot, but I'm trying to spike a heart and win a big pot. The turn is the 4 of clubs, which now gives me a gut shot straight to go along with my heart draw. I check, the big blind checks, and the cutoff bet's 75. Here again, I think about making a pretty big raise, because now there's money in the pot and I have just a ton of outs depending on what this guy has. This player hasn't been playing very aggressive. In fact, if you've noticed from my hands, most of my table has not been playing aggressive. In fact, if I hadn't been getting hit over the head with the deck, I probably would have switched tables a long time ago, but when you're getting dealt all the premium hands I am, it's hard for me to try to switch tables when things are going as well as they are. So anyway, I digress. But I think about raising here, and
especially with a player behind me who's been calling and seems interested, I decide to just call here, and I'm just hoping to peel off one of my many, many outs and win a huge pot. The big blind also calls. The river is the 10 of spades, so unfortunately I completely brick out. I check, the big blind checks, and now the cutoff leads for 200. I fold, and the big blind also folds, so don't actually know if a flop or a turn raise would have won me a pot or not, or if it would have just cost me more money. That's what happens on this one. I end up losing, unfortunately just miss a bunch of outs. In the final hand of this vlog, I'm in the big blind with the premium 2-4 of hearts. The cutoff raises to 20. I should probably just be folding here, but I don't want to, so I don't. I call, and the +1 player also calls. So the flop is 9 of hearts, jack of hearts, deuce of clubs, which is a pretty strong flop for deuce 4 of hearts. This is the reason why deuce 4 of hearts also isn't that great of a hand, because even though it's a great flop for deuce 4 of hearts, I'm probably still behind, at least as of right now. I check, the +1 checks, the cutoff bets 45. I call because I feel like I have a bunch of outs here. And then the under the gun player shoves for 220. So that's an interesting development. I'm thinking if the cutoff player folds, maybe I end up calling here. Because I have a lot of outs, my potential losses are capped. I don't have to make that decision because the cutoff reshoves for 475. I look at my cards for a while and I fold sad-faced. I could potentially be up against a better heart draw, so I let this one go. That's why 2-4 of hearts isn't a good hand. The turn is the 5 of diamonds, and the river is the queen of spades, so I would have bricked out on everything. Feeling pretty good about my fold at this point. The under the gun player shoved with ace jack with no hearts, so he just had top pair, top kicker, and the cutoff shows pocket queens for an overpair and end up rivering a set that he didn't need. He did have the queen of hearts, and he ends up winning this hand. Alright, what's up everyone? It is 3 a.m. in for 500, out for 1183 for a win of 683. Always happy to win. 700 is pretty good, not hating on it, but I was up about 1200 at one point. A lot of missed ace kings, a lot of missed flush straight combo draws, just a lot of hands that sort of hit the board or just missed, and lost some bigger hands, but happy to get the win, and not a lot of super interesting hands, just a lot of good cards, a lot of big pocket pairs, ace kings, ace queens, and a lot of calls pre-flop with raises and then folds to flop bets or turn bets, so not a whole lot of huge action-y pots to the river, but just kept getting good cards and was able to build it up a little bit.
Alright, thanks for watching everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. This vlog was recorded on April 1st of 2022. I did return to Bellagio the next night. I actually had a pretty short session on April 2nd, but I ended up losing 500 on April 2nd. So still a positive win on the weekend, but unfortunately took a loss there. In the first vlog that was recorded on March 25th, you saw how that one went, and if you didn't, you should go watch the first vlog. I played the next night, which was Saturday, March 26th, and I also won on that night. I won $1,029, so that was a nice weekend. If you've made it this far, thank you again for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hopefully you'll like and subscribe, and I'll try to keep bringing out some more content for you. And thanks again for watching, and hopefully we'll see you next time.